Hello, I'm Taylor.
Aziz.
We're about to, do our thing. So, the right to carry a concealed weapon is the right to carry a weapon in the public to protect you. However, any weapon that is accessible in public has the potential to harm others when in the wrong hands. Individuals with legal permits have contributed to the crime rate. So there are people who are going out their way, legally obtaining weapons, and they are committing crimes with the weapons that they have obtained. In August of 2010, a concealed weapon carrier, Omar Thornton, 34, went on a huge shooting rampage at the beer factory he worked at. There was footage of him stealing a few bottles and taking them home, and because of that, that led to his employment being terminated. And in retaliation, right after they said you're fired, he stood up, pulled out 2 firearms, and just started shooting like crazy and ended up killing himself in the process. As of 2007, 732 people have been killed by concealed carriers. 29 mass shootings have been committed, 46 murdericides have been committed, and 17 law enforcement officers have been killed. Law professor John J. Donahue at Stanford stated from his research of the links between right to carry laws and increasing crime that the totality of evidence based on educated judgments about the best statistical models states that the right to carry laws are associated with substantially higher rates of aggravated assault, rape, robbery, and murder. Background and psychological tests are what are necessary in order to purchase these weapons. However, these aren't effective because there still are people that are legally obtaining these weapons and committing crimes, and they are making it past this process and getting these weapons legally with permits. So even if you are psychologically sound and you're an upstanding citizen, you're not randomly going to snap and start shooting up a place. That does not stop someone from getting your weapon, like getting a hold of it, confiscating it and using it against you. How are you going to defend yourself? Right after you purchase your weapon, do you take self-defense classes in order to fight off a person like this? What happens when someone pickpockets you, especially in big cities? That is a problem. Sometimes you don't even know that it's being taken from your purse, from your pocket, wherever you're carrying it. You don't know if someone is trying to get a hold of it. 43% of homes with guns and kids have at least one unlocked firearm. Adam Lanza, the man who was responsible for the Sandy Hook shootings, was psychologically disturbed and had stolen guns from his mother, who had legally owned them. She had gone through the process, she had gotten the permits, but because they weren't locked away properly, he was able to get a hold of these weapons, go to Sandy Hook, and cause a massacre. During an experiment at the San Jose State University on April of 2000, 29 young boys at the ages of 8 to 9, they were put in a controlled room, and there was a fake concealed weapon that was being hidden. So 1/3 of these boys who found the gun, they ended up pulling the trigger. And that's a pretty big deal because, these boys, they weren't thinking, and they pulled the trigger to what could have been a possibly destructive weapon. What happens when you put your purse down at a party and some kid gets curious and they decide to go through it and they want to know what's in Auntie Sally's bag? What are they going to find? Yes, the gun is safe when in the control of someone who has been trained, knows how to use it properly, and will be safe about it. But what happens when it gets in the wrong hands? Because there's a huge potential for that to happen, and in the end, a disaster can occur. While the right to carry concealed weapons has the potential to protect civilians from violence, we do not have enough laws to make sure that only trustworthy people can obtain the permits, and there are too many outside factors to make sure that the weapon is always in safe hands. Increasing the number of weapons in our society will not promote peace, but fear. We cannot threaten to end violence with more violence, because this is, in the end, supposed to be a peaceful country. So remember, guns don't solve problems. People solve problems.
Okay. All right, now for the questioning. In your conclusion, you mentioned that the system does have the potential to protect the civilians it was in the right hands and if they were trained, right?
Yes.
Would you agree that if we change the system somehow and provide training for people who get permits, would it be more beneficial, perhaps?
I believe that, yes, changing the system and making it a little bit more controlled would possibly improve the situation. But the thing is, all these factors are on paper, and it's not applied to the real world yet. We don't know what kind of factors are going to be out there. Anyone can be, you can get tested. Some people are going to, end up passing when they shouldn't have. There are going to end up being problems. So in the end, as perfect as it does look on paper, it's not going to work in the real world.
Okay, because the reason we're putting out guns, in my opinion, is that we're trying to protect civilians from criminals. Now, wouldn't you agree that criminals don't really care about the law, so they really wouldn't care about this program that we're talking about?
Yes, it is possible to obtain legal weapons. However, the fact that there are a portion of criminals that are obtaining these weapons legally, it is a lot harder to purchase an illegal weapon. And the fact that a lot of these criminals do have these weapons legally is a problem because it is contributing to our crime rate.
Right, but a pretty big portion of mass shootings were done with illegal weapons. So criminals, if they can't do it legally, they'll find a way to do it illegally, and still the civilians would be endangered. And we're talking about the safety of civilians, not the criminals. And I think the program would help. Wouldn't you agree that if we do the right training, the right background checks, that we would be able to provide a safer community in general?
I believe that regardless, criminals are going to find a way to get these weapons. However, if we can deter any way for us to help the problem by making it a little bit harder for them to get these weapons, I think that will help our problem a lot because they are contributing to the crime rate, people that have legally been obtaining weapons. And there are other ways to protect yourself other than a gun. Maybe you get a dog. Maybe you can get a taser. There's something called pepper spray. There's swords out there, so we can find ways to protect ourselves. Maybe take a karate class,
Yeah.
So I think in general there are alternatives to pulling a trigger to protect ourselves.
All right.
Watch a Jackie Chan movie. You'll see what I'm saying.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, awesome.
All right. My turn. Hello, everyone. My name is Aziz, and I'll be arguing the side that says legalizing carrying concealed weapon is a good idea, and it will benefit the community. Since 2006, there has been 32 mass shootings and across the nation, and half of which took place in schools, colleges, and movie theaters. And one might ask, what is it about these places that attracts shooters? And it's because these places are very vulnerable. People go there, they want to watch a movie, they go to school, they don't expect a shooter to show up. I believe that by utilizing the Carry Concealed Weapon program, we can actually reduce the vulnerability of our schools, colleges, and movie theaters, and make our community as a whole safer. My first point is that as a society, we are as strong as our weakest link. And as a community, it's our responsibility to protect the weakest among us. For example, in the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting in 2012, 26 people died, and 20 of them were children. You could see clearly here that the reason the shooter attacked the school is because it's elementary school and most of them are children. Perhaps if there was a concealed weapon on campus with a teacher who was trained to use it, the outcome wouldn't be so devastating. But that wasn't the case. Michael Schmidt, who's a writer for New York Times Magazine, states that the FBI has confirmed that since 2000, 487 people have died from mass shootings. And out of those, 366 were only in the past 7 years. So you can see that the mass shootings are rising, and there are more people going insane, just start shooting people. So as that increases, the attack on schools increases, and the schools and colleges become more of a target. The second point I want to make is that I understand that the system is not perfect. There's a lot of flaws with the current system. We do need to change those. The system that decides who qualifies for a permit. According to an article called A Guide to Mass Shooting in America, written by Mark Fallman, Gavin Aronson, and Dina Pan, apparently most of the shooters were middle-aged men with psychological disorder. And a lot of them showed signs of being ill before the shooting. So perhaps if the background check was done a little bit more carefully, those signs would have shown up in the research, and these people wouldn't be able to obtain legal weapons. But nonetheless, 35% of the mass shootings are done with illegal weapons. So there is that portion that we need to worry about. But changing the system definitely helps. But I think it's more beneficial to change the system rather than getting rid of it completely. Another point I would like to make is regarding the safety of our community. One of the really popular opposing arguments is that expanding the carry concealed weapon program allows individuals who have permit to commit more crime. And this view is quite not right. According to the Texas study that was posted on Beaufort Observer online, in the year 2011, the Texas study shows that less than 1% of the crimes were done by permit holders. To be exact, 0.2% of 2011 crimes were done by permit holders. So you can see that the intention behind getting a gun is not to commit crime, is to protect yourself. And the people who get the guns, they are not the people that usually commit the crime. Also, the crime rates in the cities that have utilized this program have dropped drastically. According to the Washington Times, in Washington, reports of burglary and motor vehicle theft are down 20% and 26% respectively. In Texas, the year they adopted this program, the murder rates fell 50%. And in the first year, the rape rates fell 93%. The second year, they fell down 500%. Assaults fell 250% in the second year. So you can see that they're working in these areas. So it must show that it's a good program, and that if we utilize it, if we learn to use it well, we can actually benefit the community as a whole. According to John Arlott, who is a faculty member at the Crime Prevention Research Center, through his research, he found out that between years 2007 and 2013, the murder rates on the national level has dropped 22%, while the rate of Americans with carry concealed weapon permits has risen by 130%. So, and the explanation behind that is, according to psychology, when you allow people to carry concealed handguns, you see a change in the behavior of the criminals. In a way, back to the thesis, a statement that I made before, if they're less vulnerable, they're less likely to get attacked, and they're less of a target. So in conclusion, I believe that we can use the carry concealed weapon in a way to benefit the community as a whole. Disposing this program would, I believe, do more damage than good, because criminals in general don't care about the law. We create the law for the citizens to protect them from criminals. So they will find a way to obtain weapons, and there will be more mass shootings. Also, I believe a bit more elaborate background checks would be a very good step in the right direction. And again, this program is a way for our citizens to defend themselves, and there is no indication that by having more guns, crimes will rise. Thank you.
So you used the Sandy Hook massacre as an example to why we should have guns.
Yes.
Because after that, there was a big reaction that we should be able to protect ourselves.
Yes.
Because of these incidents. Did you know that at the time, Connecticut did have a concealed carry law? Like, where they did allow people with permits to have weapons?
Yeah, but a lot of times schools, they specifically don't allow carry concealed weapons on schools. And I believe that's what happened in that shooting, is that the school didn't allow any carry concealed weapons on campus for any of the faculty members to have any. And I believe if we're a little bit more open to the program, we can utilize it and stop these events from happening.
Okay, and you said that the reason that we need these laws to allow concealed carry permits is to fix the vulnerability of public places where there are mass shootings, because they do happen in movie theaters,
yes,
malls, schools. Would you like to know the number of mass shootings that have been stopped by an armed civilian in the past 30 years?
Sure, yeah.
0. So there have been states that have put this law into action, but they're still having mass shootings. How come they haven't been stopped yet? How come this law hasn't shown results that on paper that we can see, okay, well, because of this law, we have prevented X amounts of mass shootings. We have saved X amount of lives because there was a person with a concealed weapon. When in the past 30 years, there have been 0 mass shootings that are prevented by an armed civilian.
The best thing I can explain about that is that maybe perhaps the training wasn't done right. Perhaps a lot of people are not trained to what to do when they are faced with these situations, because most people are not normally faced with these situations. So perhaps if we could use the training and prepare certain people to be a little bit more on foot when things like this happen, it would benefit.
But you would think someone that purchased a gun would have the logic to go out their way and figure out how to use a gun.
Yes.
That makes sense, right?
Like I said, the system is not perfect at the moment, and I do believe there needs to be changes. But completely getting rid of the program, I don't think is the right solution and the right direction to go. Perhaps by just changing the training a little bit to make it a little bit more to today's standard.
And you said that, like, this is to, this law is to help citizens protect themselves from criminals who will do anything necessary to do what they want to do. But a Philadelphia study shows that the odds of an assault victim being shot are 4.5 times greater than someone who hadn't carried a gun, and the odds of them being killed were 4.2 times greater. Because the likelihood of you carrying a gun, there is a big chance of it being used against you.
Right.
So if anything, you are helping.
Exactly. If you are not prepared, if you don't know self-defense, it can easily be taken from you. If you haven't taken training, but I believe there should be a requirement to have a certain amount of self-defense training before using a gun or before getting a permit, and that's part of changing the system.
Okay. No further questions. Okay, so the right to carry a concealed weapon is the right to carry a gun. A gun, when it comes down to it, is a weapon that is meant to kill someone. There are reasons to have to protect yourself, but when it also helps out criminals and it gives them the ability to and higher chances of hurting someone and creating mass shootings, there is going to be a problem, especially because statistics do show that there haven't been any mass shootings that have been prevented with an armed citizen there. There is more of a likelihood of you getting hurt with your gun being used against you than protecting yourself. And there are criminals that are contributing to this crime rate when they do have illegally obtained weapons. On top of that, what happens when it does end up in the wrong hands? What happens when you get pickpocketed? What happens when someone goes through your bag and they find it? Like, you cannot stop all these factors. We cannot predict all this stuff from happening. We cannot guarantee that this gun will always be in safe hands. Yes, sometimes it is locked away, but when you do have a concealed weapon, you aren't going to have a safe strap to your back. You are going to have it in your pocket, your jacket. You're going to have it in your bag. And it's going to be a lot easier for someone to access it, and sometimes you're not going to be able to defend yourself enough to prevent the person from obtaining that weapon. So the outside factors in general are too unpredictable for us to depend on the right to conceal the carry weapon to protect us. Yes, it does have the potential, but it also has the potential to get you killed, and it has the potential for more crime to be committed. So in conclusion, increasing the number of weapons in our society, it's not going to promote peace. We are literally trying to fight violence with violence. When you fight fire with fire, what happens? You end up getting burned. So we should find a different way to approach the situation, find a different way to solve this violence problem other than trying to arm ourselves, because this is not a war country. We're America. We shouldn't have to have a gun to feel safe in our home. So, thank you, USA. I'm going to sit down now.
Okay, so, girl, you are a communist. You are a real American. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so I want to point out that simply just because having a gun doesn't mean that there's going to be crime. You can abuse anything. Guns. You can kill someone with a knife, olive fork, whatever. You can kill people with anything. It's really the person that's doing the crime that's the problem, and not the gun itself. Just because you can abuse something doesn't mean it should be banned from society. We can't just nerf the world just because some people misuse certain items. So I believe that with the right training, with the right background checks, we can minimize the guns getting in the wrong hands. And also, we will decrease the vulnerability of our society and making our communities safer. If you know the other person has a way of defending themselves, you're less likely to engage in a violent interaction and try to, like, I don't know, start a fight. If you know they have a knife, you're less likely to start a fist fight because you know that they could use the knife against you. So that's kind of our way of making sure that our citizens are safe and they're protected and have a mean to defend themselves. And also, the intention, like I said before, behind getting a gun is not to commit crime. It's a way of protecting yourself, and we have to follow the right procedure, lock them properly, make sure that the keys are in a safe place. And doing so, we can actually utilize this program in a very positive way and help our community as a whole. Thank you.